Preventing violence in the workplace. The Preventing Violence in the Workplace training is designed to help educate workers on how to identify specific hazards associated with their jobs and worksite to help them minimize their and their coworkers' risk of assault and injury. After completing this training, you will be able to define workplace violence and explain the 4 categories of workplace violence, present facts about workplace violence, list risk factors for potential violence and aggressive behaviors in the workplace, describe several ways to prevent violence at the workplace, prioritize post-incident reporting and response procedures, and describe the key elements in workplace violence prevention policies. Workplace violence is any act against an employee that creates a hostile work environment and negatively affects the employee either physically or psychologically. It is estimated that nearly 25% of all workplace violence goes unreported. There are 4 types of threats in workplace violence: direct, indirect, veiled, and conditional. 4 categories of workplace violence are violence by customer, clients, patients, or students, violence by employees and supervisors, violence by domestic partners or relatives of employees, and violence by strangers committing robbery. Workplace violence fatalities are more common than electrocution, being killed by objects, death from falls. Workplace violence is the number 1 cause of workplace fatality for women and the number 2 cause for workplace fatality for men. There is on average 20 work-related murders each week. Homicide is the leading cause of death for women in the workplace. Internal factors leading to lawsuits include hiring, retention, supervision, and inadequate security. 5 factors leading to workplace violence include, but are not limited to, employee disenchantment, absenteeism, turnover, aggressiveness, and anger. This person may not be happy with his or her supervisor or the job itself, or may be unhappy because of personal circumstances that have carried over into the workplace. A person who is disenchanted in the workplace could show the propensity towards workplace violence. Absenteeism is a warning sign of possible workplace violence. Conflict with the management style, working conditions, employees' relationships with one another, and personal problems are all influences for absenteeism. 75% of all absenteeism is relationship-based. Employee disenchantment are warning signs of workplace violence. This is connected to confusion, lack of trust, office politics, meaningless jobs, employees not knowing if he or she is succeeding in their job performance, or bosses taking credit for employees' work. Warning sign: the employee is code yellow, refuses to cooperate with immediate supervisor, spread rumors and gossips, consistently argues with coworkers or management, is belligerent towards customers, swears at others, and makes unwanted sexual comments. The employee is code orange. They refuse to obey company policy, sabotage equipment, and steal property, verbalizes wishes to hurt coworkers or management, writes sexually violent notes, and sees self as victimized by management. The employee is code red, has suicidal thoughts, has physical fights on the job, uses weapons, or commits violent acts and crimes. Aggressive behaviors include anger, harassment, stalking, threats, inappropriate communications, and trespassing or returning to the workplace after being told to leave. Workplace violence programs. They tend to make good business sense, they avoid exposure to litigation, and increase the likelihood of safe employees. Domestic violence, emotional abuse. The abuser often continually criticizes, calls names, or shouts, insults or drives away friends and family, humiliates a person in private or public, keeps a person from working, controls the money, or makes all of the decisions, refuses to work or share money, takes the car keys or money, regularly threatens to leave or tell a person to leave, threatens to kidnap children when angry, or manipulates with lies and contradictions. In physical abuse, the abuser pushes, shoves, kicks, or chokes, holds a person down to keep them from leaving, hits, slaps, or bites, throws objects, locks a person out of the house, abandons a person in dangerous places, refuses to help a person when sick, injured, or pregnant, forces a person off the road or drives recklessly, and threatens to hurt a person with a weapon. In sexual abuse, the abuser minimizes the importance of a person's feelings about sex, criticizes a person sexually, insists on unwanted or uncomfortable touching, withholds sex and affection, forces sex after physical abuse or when a person is sick, rapes a person, is jealously angry, assumes a person will have sex with anyone, or insists that a person dresses in a more sexual way than they want them to. Signs of possible victimization include frequent or unplanned leave, changes in job performance, sudden changes of address, depression, self-neglect, panic attacks, anxiety, and more. Organizations should adopt workplace violence guidelines, including zero-tolerance policies. Violation of this policy may result in disciplinary action up to and including termination from employment. Additionally, violations of this policy will also be reported to the appropriate authorities when warranted, and therefore may be subject to civil and/or criminal charges and penalties. Any worker who witnessed, were subjected to, or have knowledge of any threatening behavior should immediately report it to management or human resources. Prevent workplace violence when terminating an employee. When terminating an employee, management should carefully review the employee's personnel background. This may prevent or reduce the potential of workplace violence. In the termination process, prepare and plan. Who will conduct the exit interview? Who should witness this meeting? How will the remaining staff be told? Will anyone in the company react emotionally? Attempt to keep it brief. Design and choose a specific place. Do not use your office. Have an exit predetermined. Ensure security is available if necessary. After the termination meeting, collect keys, be respectful in front of other employees, allow the employee to retrieve their personal effects, resist the urge to return threats, and offer support, disarming anger by listening and showing empathy. Review workplace violence policies, implement and discuss your employee assistance program, practice effective pre-employment screening methods, and train management and employees. All employees should familiarize themselves with their company's policies and emergency procedures, report any physical and verbal threats, never touch the violent person, use a calm, non-confrontational approach, take all threats seriously, familiarize themselves with the resources available, and seek immediate assistance if the situation escalates. When encountering a violent situation, employees should call 911 and building security personnel. Make sure to make the call using a phone that is out of sight and hearing of the violent person. If you can, stay on the phone until the police arrive. Do not intervene physically, and get yourself and others to a safe place as soon as possible. Keep your purse, wallet, keys, and other valuables with you at all times or locked in a drawer or closet. Check the identity of any strangers who are in the office. Don't stay late if you'll be alone in the office. Report any broken or flickering, dimly lit corridors, broken windows, or doors that don't lock properly. Human Resources will investigate any suspected incidences of violence or threatening behavior and take appropriate reaction. If an employee notices signs of potential workplace violence in a fellow employee or stranger at the workplace, they should report this to the appropriate person. Immediately report any incidents of sexual harassment to a supervisor or the Human Resource Department. If the company does not supply an emergency kit, it is encouraged that the employee keep their own emergency supplies. Avoid using out-of-the-way corridors and stairwells when alone. Processes involved in the evaluation include, but are not limited to, Establish a uniform violence reporting process and regular review of reports, reviewing reports and minutes from staff meetings on safety issues, measuring improvements, evaluating effectiveness of existing security measures, and keeping up-to-date records with changes in practices. There are advantages to having a written policy. A written policy will inform employees about what behavior management considers inappropriate and unacceptable in the workplace, what to do when incidents covered by the policy occur, and contacts for reporting any incidents. A written policy encourages employees to report such incidents and will show that management is committed to dealing with incidents involving violence, harassment, or other unacceptable behavior.